iGlobenews is very pleased to welcome our listeners to another edition of iGlobenews Pods. This edition of our podcast series will be posted on our YouTube channel. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and our newsletter on our website, www.iglobenews.org. Joining us for today's interview is Maria Rauch-Kallat. Ms. Rauch-Kallat is a well-known political figure in Austria. As a member of the Austrian People's Party, you were their general secretary from 1995 to 2003, and were a member of the cabinet of Chancellor Franz Vranitzky and Wolfgang Schüssel, serving as Austria's Minister for Environment, Youth and Family from 1992 to 1995, and as Austria's Minister for Health and Women from 2003 to 2007. You were a member of Austria's parliament for 10 years. You have been a leader of the women's movement in Austria and internationally, serving as head of the People's Party Women's Movement from 1998 to 2008, and as the president of Austria's Women's Movement. You also were vice president of the women's organization of the EPP, the European People's Party. You are very active in the Paralympic Committee, serving as vice president of the Austrian Paralympic Committee from 1998 to 2009. And since 2009, you've been serving as its president. You are also very engaged in organizations supporting children and opposing child abuse, such as MÖWE. In 1986, you founded Alpha, a non-partisan association that is dedicated to networking and promoting women in various fields and has been active for more than 30 years. Welcome, Maria Rauch-Kallat, to iGlobenews Pods.
Hello.
Let me start by asking you a question as a former Minister of Health. During the COVID pandemic, Chancellor Kurz from Austria's People's Party and his junior party, the Green Party, have been in power. The Green Party have been in charge of the Ministry of Health. How would you judge how the present government has fared through this unprecedented crisis?
I think they have done quite well. Especially during the first period, because they made the first lockdown rather early, and we had quite a good run until August, September. Then I think the managing of the second run of the COVID-19 pandemic in Austria, which got its peak in November, December, January, was not so well done because we had many dead people in that time. We had not so many in the beginning. And then we had a very long lockdown, which was not to prevent, but they did it rather good again. The start of the vaccination period was very much discussed in Austria, but ran very well, and they did quite a good job up to now. So we have about 55% of the Austrian population that's fully vaccinated, so fully immunized. But we have to do some more. We have about close to 70%, 68, 69, who have at least one shot. And of course, we know with the Delta virus, we will need 85% to really protect our population. So they are doing at the moment, they are doing quite a lot to get young people vaccinated, to go to places where many people are. They even start vaccinating in St. Stephen's Cathedral, which I find quite a funny idea. So I think they do quite well. There have been made mistakes, that's right, but to tell the truth, tell me those people who haven't made a mistake in this very strange time we have now, because nobody has known before how this virus will develop, what will happen. We still don't know enough. So we know a lot, much more than we did last year, but not enough to say it will be like this, it will be like this.
And at the moment, the measures have been mostly taken back. Do you think we're heading towards another lockdown in the fall?
I hope we can prevent another lockdown. So numbers are rising. Again, we have 900 from yesterday to today, which is enormously high for the last months. So last time we had this number was May, April. And but we see already the result of the vaccination because we have not so many hospitalized people, and in intensive care we have very few. All over Austria, we have a very good system of intensive care units in Austria and a very good hospital system in Austria. So we can hopefully prevent another lockdown because we will measure the total lockdown. We will measure on the number of hospitalized people and people who are in intensive care, not to stress too much our hospital system.
Yes. I think it's always important to keep an eye out also for the hospitalizations, as you said. One issue which has been widely discussed in Austria now is whether in the public sector, for instance, there should be obligatory vaccines. And it seems to be quite a division now, not even along party lines. What is your opinion on this?
So government is very, very careful, very preventive against obligatory vaccinations. I can understand it because we are a liberal society and people are nevertheless still afraid. I don't know why. Why? Because the vaccination is much less problematic than the illnesses. But I do think it is totally necessary that people who are working in healthcare and who are working closely to people like hairdressers, like customers, relations, people. So it would be very useful if many more people would be vaccinated than at the moment are.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for that candid answer. COVID certainly has impacted everyone, but undoubtedly women constitute one of the hardest hit groups. Between home office and homeschooling during the lockdowns, families have been put to the test. The percent of women in management positions has also suffered during this pandemic. So my question to you is, do you support obligatory quotas for women and other measures of affirmative action to increase the number of women in top management?
Of course I do. I've done that for many years. I've tried to encourage especially women to run for top positions because very often it's not their fault, but not only their fault, but it is also their fault because you have to apply for top positions. They don't run behind you to offer you a top position. And even if they are offered a top position, many women say no because they prefer staying with the children. They prefer, they don't even think they are good enough for the job, which is so you have always to encourage women to say, have more self-confidence. You can do more than you think you can do. And I've done that for many years, more or less for the last 30-40 years. And the second very important thing is to convince companies and even middle-sized companies, not only the big ones, but also middle-sized companies, that mixed teams at the top are much more effective than mono teams are. And we know that from many, many studies in the meantime. So studies in that field started in the early 21st century. So I think 2004 or 6 was one of the first by Ernst and Young. And no, not Ernst and Young was not the first. McKinsey was, I think, was one of the first. But in the meantime, some companies have always made, or every 5 years, every 10 years, to see that they perform better, that it's really an advantage for companies to have mixed teams at the top, and especially companies that are run by mixed teams or by women perform much better in the results, in the outcome. So it's not clever to have so few women in top positions.
I agree with everything you say, but what do you say to those skeptics who also include many women, I may add, who say, well, I don't want to be a quota woman. I want to be chosen for my merits.
It's not a shame to be a quota woman. So I've run for the quota since the 80s of last century. I'm convinced of quota. It may not be elegant, but it works. That's the most important. Wherever we have quotas, it works quicker. It works. It would take, if we don't do anything, it will at least take 80, 90 years until we will have reached equality with the things we do now. So quota would help that it makes it much faster. And I'm convinced of quotas and of the work of quotas. And it's not a shame to be a quota woman, because as a woman, if you get the chance by quota, you have to prove yourself. If you don't prove yourself, you are away in a very short time. And if you prove yourself, you have a big chance. And most of the quota women prove themselves very, very good.
That's a good argument. I like that a lot. So equality is a big word out there. Another thing in Austria, which also isn't equal, is the discrepancy in the retirement age for women and men. Whereas men must work until they reach 65, women can retire as early as 60, especially in light of... Not anymore?
Not anymore. We have changed that in 2004 during my time as a minister with a pension reform. But we have a very long, and we have started with a change in the 90s of the last century, but we have a very long time for women for their security. So because you have to trust in the pension system. So it started in 2018. So the first in those who are now retiring already have to, I think, 61. So it's 3 months every year, and it will end in 2000, I think 29 or 30. They have even made it a bit more rapidly. So for example, the generation of my daughters who are now 51 and 48, they already will have to serve until 65. And I could retire. I could have retired at 60, but I'm still working, and I'm now 72, and I don't intend to stop working. So I'm paying in this pension system. I'm now in the 54th year of paying into the pension system.
So it is slowly being raised. Was there a reason for the slow raise? I mean, you mentioned that there has to be.
Yes, it was to give women security. So we had in fact, we had a pension system that was was in fact family friendly for women who were not in the job. because they got, but only if they were married. But nevertheless, they still have much less pension. The average female pension is much lower than the average male pension, and but we changed the system, so up to 2003, the best 15 years counted, and so many people worked for the best 15 years, and now we have a counting of every month you worked in the result of what they worked. So, and this is the reason why we did it very slowly, so that there should not be at least no damage done to the female pensioners.
And also accepting times used for raising children. Is that still? Is that?
Yeah, it is. We pay for. So we advise women to not to take more than, in Austria you could take 3 years of family not holidays. It's not holidays, but family leave to raise children. But it has an high impact on your career. So we advise women not to take more than 12 months. We even we pay more if they only take 12 months for these 12 months. We pay anyway, even if they stay 3 years, we pay for the pension 3 years. State pays for the pension. And of course, we have started was also in my time as a women leader, we've started a pension splitting. We didn't succeed in getting obligatory pension splitting, but this government tries to implement it now obligatory, automatically. Say not obligatory, but automatically. Because many women, we found out that pension splitting was taken by very few people. And funny enough, it were the men who raised the children who took pension splitting. So the men thought very cleverly on their pension, while women very often said, oh, I don't dare to ask my husband. So if it is done automatically, the husband has to, as long as more women take more time than men do, which is still the fact, but then husbands will have to explain why they would be against it, and this is much harder than
accepting.
Woman has to ask for it, to beg for it.
So for our listeners, maybe who don't know what pension splitting is, it would be that the two pensions would be added together and split
in two
equitably between.
Yeah.
And is it only between actually married couples, or would it also be between partnerships?
It could also be between partnership, but you can't do it automatically between partnership. If you don't know the father, I don't know. So they are still negotiating on it, but it's within the government plan for this period, and I hope they will realize it.
So all in all, we can summarize that actually women have a very strong case in Austria compared to other countries where maybe their rights are not so well secured.
We do have, but there is still more to be done. It's still not equally. It's not equality between men and women. We still have an income gap of about 18%, 19%, maybe in various jobs 20%. We have a big pension gap. There is much to do against poverty, female poverty in age. And we have much to do in equal share of family work and income work, unpaid and paid work.
So there's enough to still be done to
Yes.
make the lives of
Enough
Austrian women.
Enough for 2 or 3 generations of women politicians.
At least. So you've consistently fought for women and championed their cause, which brings me now to Club Alpha, a organization which you initiated in 1986, which has set itself the goal of creating a network of women supporting other women, also through their mentoring program. The club was founded in the tradition of Hildegard Burian, the first Christian Social Party member of the Austrian Parliament, and also the founder of an order of women called Caritas Socialis. So we've also discussed this. Maybe you'd like to talk a bit and explain to our listeners a bit about Club Alpha, what your goals are, and maybe also what politics could do maybe to support groups like Club Alpha more.
Club Alpha was in fact a network project. It was more or less the first network project in Vienna or Austria that worked so well. And it was founded to encourage women, more women in decision-making positions. May it be in politics, may it be, it's over partisan, it's not a partisan group, although Hildegard Burian was a partisan politician, but she was a remarkable person. In fact, she is the only politician that ever has been well, how do you call?
She was made a saint.
Holy. She's made a saint. Yes. She was a very remarkable woman because she came from a well-off family, and she worked very much for the poorest women, for those who were home workers and against children's work, and for those who were unjustly treated and so on. So she did a lot. In the only 50 years, she died when she was 50, and she really was great. That was one of the reasons why we called the institute after her. And we are a non-partisan organization, an over-partisan organization, women from all parties, which makes the secret of the network, because we can touch shoulders over party borders. And we did that in various occasions. We worked together over partisan in parliament, only the women, and managed to overrule the men sometimes. So it works sometimes. And the second one is, of course, that we want to encourage women to go into decision-making positions in economy, in art, in science, in politics. So it's very important that we get our fair share in decision-making. So we have more than half of the duties, so we want to have at least half of the rights.
Yeah, for certain. For certain. Even though I have to say, often just in general, I think many capable women and men, for that matter, ask themselves, do they want to go into politics nowadays? It seems to have even gotten tougher since the time when you were in politics as a mere observer on my part, where people have no more privacy, where it's become really, really tough. And of course, the power of the media play a really big role also, and the responsibility. So what would you say to women who might want to become involved in politics, but are very hesitant because they see how politicians sometimes of all venues and from all sides get treated also unjustly?
It has definitely become tougher within the last 20 years. And it has become quicker. That's both is due to social media, to the high speed of social media communication, social media information. So, and of course, it's visible, and it's rather clear that women very often are more often victims of social media abusements and than men are. There are both, of course, and it's very sad because in fact you can't really advise anybody to go into politics, but we would need the best people in politics. So it's very hard to understand why somebody who is very well off, who is very successful in business, should change to politics. So it's a very difficult situation, and we should think that over if we really want to change something.
Yeah, it's a societal issue at the moment, and I think the quality of our democracy is at stake. But not only in Austria. I mean, if one
That's all
observes
over the world.
all over the world,
Yes.
the same thing is happening, and even more so in other countries. And Austria, thank God, is still not the most extreme. But you, as you said, yeah,
Look at the world. One of my favorite. So if you look, you very seldom find women in corruption. You very seldom find women who go start a war. So one of my favorite sayings is, what would a world be without man? No war, no crime, and full of fat women, happy fat women. They're always slim for the man. No war, no crimes, no crime, no war, and full of happy fat women.
I'm sure, there'll be a number of people who then will think we're fat shaming, but we're not. We're meaning it in the most positive sense for
Yes, we are meaning it in a very positive sense.
Positive
because
sense.
I don't find it healthy if we slim, and everybody should have his healthy weight
Exactly.
and
Whatever that
live
might
with it. Yes.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be.
Yeah. I
Not
think
don't diet for men.
Don't diet for men. And I think the pressures of, especially also social
Yes.
media, as we had mentioned before, add to this whole craze of looking a certain way, which especially I think on younger women puts an incredible amount of pressure. But I think it goes through all ages, frankly. So
only diet for health.
Exactly. And to make yourself
and for
feel
a better
good.
feeling. Yeah.
I'd like to go back to the an issue which I find very important, namely a considerable body of literature suggests that gender inequality in the STEM fields are rooted in the widespread societal assumption that science, especially physics, engineering, or maybe even mathematics, is a male field. Austria's Tokyo medal winner Anna Kiesendorfer could serve as a very, very positive role model for women. She is a professor of mathematics and also a top athlete. So how can women be encouraged to enter STEM areas, which will bring more job opportunities? And I think it would also help close the pay gap because, of course, if you have a high level of education in these areas, which are always sought after, you will get the same amount of pay. But how can you motivate young girls not to maybe become hairdressers, which is also very important, don't get me wrong, but maybe study physics or mathematics instead?
First of all, Anna Kiesenhofer did a great job. So
yes.
It was really fascinating how she drove off and the second and the third forgot about her and came into the goal and said, oh, there has been somebody here. And they thought they were number one and number two. So she did a real great job. Yes, she is a mathematics. She's obviously, nobody knew her before.
Yeah.
She obviously was great in planning everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she did most of the things on her own. Mm-hmm. So not even her trainers knew about it, obviously. And what we did for many years with the STEM is we founded within the Club Alpha. We also founded another organization which we call Tech Women, where I did that in the early. In the beginning of the 21st century, after when I was woman minister, as a minister for women, we did a lot to encourage young girls to to go into unusual professions, especially in technical professions because they are better paid, IT professions. We even started in kindergarten. So we try to promote computers in kindergarten. We sent young technicians to schools to encourage young women, to encourage girls. We made girls' days. And I promoted all organizations that tried to encourage women. There were quite some organizations who tried that. We even founded one ourselves in 2006 or 7, the Tech Women, who are now still in Alpha. It's a small branch of women, and we still do. We made congresses for school classes uh, to show the young girls being a technician doesn't mean to be dirty, doesn't mean to lie under a car. And so professions have changed within the last 15 years, also for the boys, of course. So they are very clean jobs, and women and young girls have the same quality in logical thinking. So we also found out that we have to work on the parents, because very often parents in a high degree influence the choice of profession of their children. So it's a hard job. There is still a lot to be done in convincing.
I think
we need role models, of course.
Yeah.
We show up role models. We do it in the mentoring club. We show role models, especially also in the technical field. So it's, and we make with the girls' days, we still try to get the young girls in technical professions to try out how it works and so on.
Yeah, I think bringing the parents into the equation is probably, especially for the younger girls, would be also important, to somehow ignite the passion for science, technology, mathematics. I think those are the jobs of the future, because many, especially in the first world, the production companies are going to move further and further away. There's only so much service industry, but I think all the tech jobs will always find a job and always find a well-paid job. So for all women listening out there, go into a STEM field or
much
encourage
better paid. Much better paid.
Exactly. You're also president of the Austrian Paralympic Committee. From August 24th to September 5th, the Paralympics will take place in Tokyo. Do you happen to know how many Austrian athletes are going to take part this year?
Yes, of course. There will be 24.
Okay.
18 men and 6 women. It's also very difficult for handicapped women to have some more time for sports, because very often, if they are handicapped, they have a family as well. And sports is the add-on, and they don't have enough time to train. But we have 6 women, also mothers, running for the games. So we are very happy about that. But it's only 25%, and we of course hope that we will bring back some medals again.
So I hope so too, and I'm very confident that you will. Do the women athletes have a tougher time finding sponsors than the male athletes?
Probably, I think so, because they are not. But we have very successful women, especially in Winter Games. She has stopped now. Claudia Lösch was very successful. But we also have successful women in Summer Games. It's in any way, it's not so easy for handicapped athletes to find sponsors, but it becomes better and better. So it develops, and we work very hard on the development. Our job is to promote our athletes, to promote, to show their enormous, um, great achievements they get, because it's remarkable what they can do, and to show our society that handicap doesn't mean you are a poor guy to be pitied, but it's they have high qualities, and they show what is possible, and that's important, because it can happen to each of us every time. Car
That's true.
accident, whatever, fall over your staircase, very easy.
Yeah, let's knock on wood. Um, these athletes certainly can serve as a great role model, but not only to those who have a handicap, but to everyone, to show that you can even
Of
overcome
course.
that and achieve something. Will you be going to Tokyo? Do you have any
Yes, of
plans?
course.
Excellent. Oh,
Yes,
that should be
yes, of course.
wonderful.
I have to encourage, I have to uh, cheer them,
Hmm.
and if necessary, to console them and say,
Um,
okay, not this time, but next time.
I understand. I'm sure that'll be really exciting. Which one more issue regarding the Olympics? I mean, the Tokyo Olympics themselves were held against growing opposition within the public in Japan, who were actually not very for it. Now there seems to be this new Lambda variant, which is spreading in Japan, which some say is attributed to the Olympics as well. Do you think, I guess the Paralympics, as you say now, are going to go ahead? Do you fear that there'll be a backlash as well, that people will be very opposing against the Paralympics, as they were throughout the Olympics, against the Tokyo Olympics themselves?
No, I don't think so. So it won't be worse than it was with the Olympics themselves, but you have to know that the people against it were, compared to the total number of people in Japan, a rather very small group. And you have to know, we all, the athletes, the trainers, and the functioners, they they have they are only allowed to move in a bubble.
Hmm.
So we are not allowed to use public transport. We are not allowed to go shopping, for example. We don't have time anyway. Yeah,
Hmm.
we are not allowed to sightseeing. We don't have time anyway. But
Yes.
we only are allowed to. We have to test. Even if we are double vaccinated, we are allowed to uh, go straight from the airport after testing when arriving to the hotel, to the Olympic uh, village,
Hmm.
uh, to the sports places, and back to the hotel. And more is not allowed. So,
Hmm.
and we are not allowed to go in public transport. We have to go in our special cars, which
Hmm.
are for only for us.
Hmm.
So I don't think it will be. And I'm so happy that they take place now, because you have to know, the athletes work 4 years, in this time 5 years, only for this moment, for these games. And
Hmm.
if they can't take place, if they can't deliver, there would be so much disappointment. And I really do hope that they will take place, and that all that our athletes have trained yet will come out in the right moment, and will give them the places they should earn.
Yes, I can totally understand that. They do say that this new Lambda variant is somehow immune to the vaccine, but I guess there's lots of speculation out there and no one really knows. I guess they were able to keep the amount of COVID cases within the Olympic Village to a certain minimum. So I guess that will happen again when the Paralympics come there.
Yeah.
And
But anyway, in Japan, the vaccination rate is very small. So
exactly,
very few
yeah,
people have been vaccinated. Austria
that's
is much better in that way.
mm. which is really amazing, I have to say,
Yeah.
considering, highly industrialized, highly developed
Yes,
country,
it's really
and
amazing.
their own population, even those who are older, still are waiting to get their first vaccine. So that could also be attributed to that. My final question, or my final block I wanted to discuss, surrounded also your exemplary activities supporting children and the underprivileged, which you have also been a champion for. The SOS Kinderdorf scandal, which surfaced in March of this year, has been largely ignored by Austria's mainstream media. It is in the interests of all NGOs to make sure that such scandal is thoroughly dealt with. Do you believe that the commission headed by Waltraud Klasnik, a former leader of the Austrian People's Party in Styria, will get to the bottom of the scandal, or do you believe that more needs to be done to restore trust in this organization?
No, I fully trust in Waltraud Krasnik. I've known her for many, many years. We've been in parliament together in the 80s of last century. She's a very trustful woman. So she was governor, first female governor ever in Austria. And she herself was a very poor child. She was born in the war, shortly after the war. She was given away by her mother. She grew up in a very poor situation with a foster mother who was also on her own. So she really worked herself hardly up, and she knows what she's speaking about. So she has realized many situations, and she did a very, very good job. We had a commission. She headed already a commission on children who were mistreated and in foster homes, in nursing schools, uh, boarding schools, and she did a very good job by it. So I trust fully in her. Uh, the Austrian media has not ignored these things. We had a big discussion on child abuse with these boarding schools in church, in Austrian church, and uh, then also in the SOS children's camps. So I'm sure she will work that up very well.
Yes, I certainly hope so. Being Austria's flagship NGO out there,
Yeah.
that would be, I think, very important to come clean.
Yes.
So my final question to you, I'll turn the floor over to you, is do you have any last advice or any important last words to women listening to us out there, what they should do and how they can promote themselves and the cause of women?
Okay, they should at least believe in themselves. They should have self-confidence. They have to know it is very important to work hard, but it's enough if they give 100%. Women very often think they have to give 150%, and then they even think they are not good enough. If a man fulfills 50% of a job, he thinks he's the best for the job. It's quite different to women. And of course, you have to actively apply for a job. This is very important. Not only wait until the prince finds you, because there are so few princes and so many frogs, much more frogs than princes. So don't wait for the prince. Apply if you think you're good enough. And if you uh, if you fail, if you make a mistake, if you even fall, don't worry. Stand up, put your crown in the right position, and walk on. That's the best way to do it.
Excellent. I think that's a very, very nice final note there. I'd like to thank you very much. Also, in the name of all our listeners, in the name of iGlobenews, for this very, very inspiring interview where we learned a lot. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on many, many different issues. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. And please stay true to iGlobenews pods for more interesting iGlobenews interviews, which will be coming your way. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you very much,
Goodbye.
Maria Rauch-Kallat.
Bye.
Thank you.